Hey folks, welcome back. I am here with my June wrap-up, which feels like it's in this weird paradoxical state of June has finally ended and it felt so long, and yet now it feels like it's gone in the blink of an eye. And perhaps that's because of the energy shift at the end of the month, but I'll get into that. So for anyone who's not familiar with my June wrap-up, it's a sharing of a few facets of my practice. I reflect on my monthly cards, share a bit about what I've been up to, what I've been using, what I've been enjoying, perhaps even a bit of what I've not been enjoying. I didn't actually use a lot of decks this month, and if you follow me on social media, perhaps it still felt like I was here in terms of YouTube because I did a couple of things, but I have been doing a lot less. I haven't been working on YouTube videos in the background. I had a bit of a break. I have obviously been focused on Patreon still, but even Instagram, I shared a couple of posts on my two pets because they're very important to me, and I don't share pictures, especially of Rogue, our leopard gecko, very often. The camera loves him, he doesn't love the camera so much. I got a glorious picture of him one morning when we was having a little moment. She had a picture of Zuri, our cat, but I started the month by rejuvenating and cleansing, clearing, you know, that kind of vibe, my altar space. Not too much changed on it, but enough. I definitely feel like I created more space, and I recorded the process, albeit very haphazardly. Sped it up super fast, edited a few really terrible bits out in terms of just like empty space where I'm pondering what I want to do with my altar. And yeah, I shared that. So if you haven't seen my shorts, there's a video of me like super speed cleaning my altar and putting things back and adding a few new bits to kind of encapsulate where I'm at and just really, like I say, feel like an energy refresh, which was very welcome. So that's how I started my month. And then I obviously celebrated the summer solstice. I was fortunate enough that it was a glorious day, and I mean sunny, warm weather. My body was allowing me the kind of movement that I really cherish, and so I didn't even think about doing any kind of ritual thing indoors at the altar really. I spent the build up to summer solstice and that day out in the garden, really just rooting into nature. I mean, nature's everywhere, but for me, being outside is just, it's just lovely. You know, bare feet in the grass, listening to the birds and the wind and the goings on and people's animals in their garden, and there was lots of barbecues and things going on. There was quite a gentle vibe in the area, and then lots and lots of animal encounters, mostly insect ones, and again I did actually share that on a shorts video as well, just some of the fantastic insects that I came across predominantly, along with our neighbour's cat, who is always in my garden. Perhaps because of all the yummy insects and birds, which fortunately I don't think he catches too many of, but you know, I'm not out there all the time, so who knows. We don't lure them down to the ground for this specific reason though. So yeah, that was the, I suppose, the key points and some of the really uplifting aspects of an interesting hermit-like month, which the hermit wasn't a card that I pulled, but it was very much a space that I openly wandered into. And so I will talk about my cards and how they, I suppose, related to that. So as usual, I've got the Hush Tarot, the Memento Mori Oracle, and my 𝗪𝘁 runes. This rune is an interesting one in that the pronunciation I've heard so far 3 ways. So I'm going to say all 3 of them. So this is a representation of the yew tree or 𝗬𝘁𝗀. Again, you're going to have to forgive my pronunciation or not, it's up to you. And this rune is either pronounced as 𝗬𝘂𝗄𝗄, 𝗬𝘂𝗄𝗄, or 𝗬𝘂𝗄𝗄. I was learning a lot about this rune this month in particular, and its connection with the world tree through just the many layers that I can sink my teeth into in sort of the Norse mythology realm. Thinking about, I suppose it's paradoxical connections between really contrasting experiences and ideas, and not so much liminality but transitioning. It was actually a rune that I was feeling a little intimidated about getting, because I have been waiting on some results for the entirety of the month whilst still being in a phase of grieving and just having some old wound processing going on, and a lot of appointments and things that I just wasn't enjoying that seemed to be coming to an end, which is such a breath of fresh air. It really is. But there is a lot of discussion with this particular rune about I suppose, the mysteries of knowledge beyond the mundane and the everyday, and, you know, knowledge of beyond death and the afterlife, and that world tree connection between the upper world, our world, and the underworld. And then all of the layers of the yew tree, and I found that all very, very fascinating. It's not something that I forced upon the rune, but I do a lot of rune study when I'm learning about them. That's one of the reasons that I've included them in my year ahead. And then I hope to start, you know, mixing them together and reading them not with tarot but with each other. But that's going to be the next layer. I have done it before, but I just don't feel very, very articulate, I suppose, in doing so. But I definitely felt that transition this month, and it was slow. It was so slow, and then suddenly, right at the end of the month, the energy has just, on 2 days before July, this is that I'm recording, has just hit that kind of, I suppose, pinnacle point that a lot of people discuss with this rune, when a change happens, or we instigate a change, or accept an initiation. And it was really connected with the layers of the Emperor, which is my tarot card. And that kind of, I suppose, fine line between really trying to call in some resilience and some strength, which are 2 things that I feel really rooted and foundational in both of these for me. That's something that I feel like there's an invitation to a really helpful, courageous kind of strength, and that's in the, I suppose, the healthiest form of the Emperor, is a really sweet structure to get into. And whilst this Emperor doesn't depict a tree, it's really interesting because one of my favourites is actually a tree as well. So they did feel like there was some tree connection. And during the month, my brother come and stayed a few times actually, because, as I say, I've been having a bit of a difficult time, and my brother very kindly came and kept me company on some occasions when my partner wasn't around. He and I went for a fabulous walk at a different, further away pond that I really wanted to show him. And then I got to show him my favourite tree. And I really must get a video of it because I don't have one currently. I think I sent a photo to a friend once. It has the biggest roots that I've ever seen. The roots are so huge. They're bursting up out of the, you know, the concrete pavement and almost going into the road. I really, really hope that they don't ever cut it down, but you never know because it's so close to a house and a road. And in a part of this tree, it's created from one of the roots its own bench that's deep enough and long enough for about 2 people to sit on, at least definitely one person. It's created its own bench. And I'm like, this tree is just everything. We'd been for a beautiful sunshine walk and I'm like waxing lyrical about it to my brother anyway, which was very fun. So a lot of tree energy in the distance, in the background, and again that kind of, that knowledge beyond human even, I feel, is like the thing that so many seek. You know, the representation of Odin seeking the rune knowledge, like trying to gain knowledge beyond ourselves. I don't necessarily feel like I did a lot of that this month, but it was just something that I thought about, the knowledge that we don't know. And then there was a layer to the Emperor in a less helpful capacity where I found myself in those really difficult moments, instead of being in a more sort of present, I suppose, just wisdom or just present state mindfully, I found myself falling into like rigid thinking around, well, this must mean this and this must mean this, just through anxiety really, which I was very much proven wrong, and I'm very glad about it. I don't mind being proven wrong, especially in these instances. And Perfume from the Memento Mori is an interesting card for me because it's kind of bittersweet, and there's an aspect to this perfume and the name that there's like a sting of nostalgia, and it's often a card that arises also with the 𝗤𝗄𝗃 card from the same deck. And certainly those two together really represented elements within my month, and both cards showed up, albeit in different readings. So this one had already been pulled, and then, oh, I don't have the other one out, it's in here. This is my mementos bag. But the 𝗤𝗄𝗃 did come out, and I was like, there it is. There it is. I suppose let's start with the throughout the month. Aside from the bittersweet nature, Perfume felt like a way of saving face, a layer, a mask, a distancing, kind of metaphorically spritzing over the stank in the air to pretend it wasn't there. You know, when you're really trying to be a different way because the way that you're feeling isn't necessarily conducive for you, but you haven't quite got to a new experience yet. So it's kind of a fake it till you make it kind of vibe. But then by the end of the month, I feel like another layer of the perfume is really a sweetened ending to a hard month. You know, the bringing of that beautiful sweet scent and something that I consider special. You know, using perfume is actually quite ritualistic for me in the most mundane sense. So it was interesting how the layers of that came through. And whilst in this Emperor card, this is a 𝗁𝗄𝗃, I chose Crow for working with. Well, I say I chose them. They were really like in my garden, in my face, being more present than they usually are. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to be with you for the month of June. Let's roll with it. This was towards the end of May. So I chose Crow. So I read, and I think that it was saying about 𝗁𝗄𝗃 really kind of like being free and taking up space in the way that is really autonomous with where they're at and who they are, and not in a way that takes away from anyone else, but you know, that's something that I really feel in the Emperor. But I also thought that even though it's a different bird, it was really interesting that they'd come up, because I hadn't really paid attention when I selected crow. So yeah, spoiler-ish, we worked with crow in Patreon this month, and I created, instead of doing a tarot spread, and I don't do them every month anyway, but I wanted to do a bit more of a free form divination, conversation, ritual experience throughout the month. So I offered some guidance for people from the Gnosis into pulling cards, creating a conversation with I suppose the archetypal and the metaphorical bits that we've taken from crow, because obviously crow's not just here to serve us. They're just an animal in their own right, but the kind of symbolic, like I say, archetypal stuff that is derived from their folklore or their behaviour and our observations and all of that good stuff. And also the spirit of crow, if that's something that people worked with as well. And really kind of having a conversation with how that gnosis and how the invitation of the month specifically was speaking to each of us. So I don't think I pulled crow from this card originally. I don't remember, if I'm honest. No, it was the medicine cards, and then that's right, because I pulled this one out because I had a whole ritual space for crow created throughout the month with my crow's foot and feathers that I've foraged. This is the Woodland Warden's Oracle, and this is, in fact, this probably needs to be seen closer. This is the Oak, Ash and Thorn Tarot. And a part of what came through when I was writing about crow's gnosis was something that I called the magician's touch. And that is before I saw that there was what I believe at least to be a crow on the magician card. So yeah, the magician's touch and tools beyond what we might first think of as tools were a whole part of this, encouraging to create conversation. And I did pull a bunch of cards for this process, of which I will add in now so you can see them quickly. I'm obviously not going to explain the exercise because that was for my Patreon peeps, but it was very open to interpretation. I added loads of representations, a few offerings. I had it in a, then moved it from here to like a different spare altar space. I gave a few offerings to the space, but I really wanted to be present with the inspiration because, of course, like I say, crows have been in and around my space a lot. I expect to see crows, so it's not like it's out of the ordinary entirely, but I've had a few particularly special moments, one of which sitting on a bench and just pond silence falling, which is very unusual for the ducks and the geese, and like everything to just fall silent. It was like all at once, and then this crow to just break the sound barrier in a moment where I was like really trying to ground through some anxiety. And yeah, it was quite a meaningful moment for me. So I've been out in the garden making sure that I feed them. It's been really hot over here. I'm already feeling the heat today, but I am running warm anyway. Putting out some water for them, you know, just being a bit more helpful, because sometimes they don't need it, and I don't want anything to rely on us to the point of not fending for themselves and lessening their ability. But I also wanted to give like an actual offering as opposed to just a spirit one. So yeah, that's a lot of the content that was focused on, was that, along with a reintroduction to what animal gnosis was, because I've had quite a few new joiners, which is so damn exciting and honouring, of course, very honouring to all of my long-standing members as well. But it's great to see new faces joining the older ones, and hopefully adding some, I don't know, zest and expansion into conversations and the community vibe. That's always cool. So I did a reintroduction of Animal Gnosis. And then we actually discussed the Suit of Pentacles, which was a separate thing, but there was some interesting, for me at least, crossovers about embodiment, which is something that I personally feel comes up a lot in the Suit of Pentacles. So that's some of what I've been up to in the month on Patreon and in my practice, because to be honest, that was the dominant part. There was lots of space, there was lots of quiet, there was very little card pulling, there was far less engagement from my part with the community. Even my small sphere outside of that, I've really just dialed it back and tried to clear a few things physically, emotionally, mentally. So I don't have much else to show. I have a couple of decks. Like I said, there are a few things that I've picked up, you know, from doing a tarot reading. That deck's not here. A couple of the decks that you saw that were in my crow divination discussion, exercise, whatever you want to call it. And probably just like a couple of random other cards. I had to play around with that Deviant Moon, the bordered version that my friend sent me. But really the two decks that I have used this month, almost solely for any other kind of purpose, is the Coastal Curiosities and then the Antique Anatomy Tarot, which just, we'll get the mass market one out, because it was easier to hand, and I really love these two together, which I had already said, I think, on a previous video. Was it on my live this month? I did a live this month, by the way. I think it should notify people in the same way that normal videos do, but then when you click on YouTube and you go on videos, you'll find that the lives are all separate. They're in a different section. But yeah, loving these two decks together so so much. The Coastal Curiosities has been, oof, look at this card. It's just really hit all of my yummy points. Like, is it Kellyanne Maddox that says fizzy? I feel like it is. There's something about this deck. I mean, most people know that I freaking love my Black and the Moon decks. I especially love my Memento Mori and my Antique Anatomy Tarot. They're my top ones out of the collection, of which I have all of. So I have probably waxed lyrically about this before. It's just so delicious. I love the flower play between the two as well, and the colour play. Neither of them are oversaturated with colours, despite the Coastal Curiosities having this vintage cottage wallpaper kind of thing going on. But there's, for me, so much to read in direction and colour, and then between the two of them, and then of course Coastal Curiosities has got literally all of these yummy symbols that honestly may look random from afar, but really I'm finding very connective. In fact, was I talking about forage? I think it was. Did I talk about this on the live? And one of the things that came through for me on forage, so sorry if you'd already listened to this, was I was thinking about the people I know who are also consider themselves vultures. So, you know, people who collect cruelty-free ethically sourced bones. So they go out and they forage, and one of the things that they forage for is animal bones. And a part of that is often looking for owl pellets. And then, I don't know what the word for going through them is. I'm sure there's a nice word for it. But basically going through the pellet and seeing if there's any like tiny mouse bones. That's often where people find those like partial tiny skulls and things that you might see in curio tins In fact, I think I've shown a curio tin like it before. And that was one of the first things that came to mind for me with Forage. Now, I'm pretty sure the book doesn't mention that, although the book is epic. And that's what I love about this deck, is like the potential for connection when sitting with it and creating our own meaning from the symbols and our own understanding is so much fun. And of course, that's just a layer of me connecting just the one keyword to the owl. That's before I've even thought about how Forage comes up, in the sense that I might pull the card, you know, am I foraging as in I am looking for something? Am I going to just find shit? Or am I going to find something precious? What's the process that I'm going through? So many layers just from that one symbol. And of course you can see that there is so much more going on here. And sometimes when I'm using the deck, I notice that one symbol in particular is the thing that I'm drawn to. Adapt has come up a few times for me, and it's been the smoky quartz. In fact, I often have my main piece out. This is something that I have held and used just to ground. I really like the weighted experience of grounding with this. I don't tend to work with the agreed upon metaphysical properties of crystals, if we can say they're agreed upon, but you know, I have a book somewhere, I think. I don't reference anything like that. I don't retain that knowledge. I work with them how I work with them, but that was the main part of Adapt that was coming through. And then other times it could be a different layer, or it could be all of it, and how it looks together. Isn't this interesting? Look how straight both the Hanged Man and the fish in cycle are. And the cycle of suspension is like the midpoint for me. The suspension of the Hanged Man is the midpoint. So these were my decks, which is unexpected. I thought that I would be continuing to have a very fairy fae focused kind of deck experience this month, but aside from having Gluminous Loom out on my altar for quite some time, until we finally said our temporary goodbyes. Yeah, I didn't really work with those, but I have a suspicion that they will be out again in July. I don't like to preempt things, but I did miss them. I just didn't have the space for as much divination or card reading or checking in, or even just pulling for the fun of it, which I do occasionally. But yeah, scissors were another one that you might have seen in my crow exercise ritual space, and they were a big theme. Big theme. I would love to hear what people enjoy putting with either of these decks, actually, because I'm always interested in pairings. And I've spoken about pairings a lot on Patreon. I'm not sure how often. I feel like I've done a YouTube video on it. I'm sure I have. But I have so much fun experiencing different decks together. But these two kind of feel like a match made in heaven. So they're the two decks that I used. Honestly, other than that, I have very little to share. In terms of, I'm not inclined to share much else. I don't really feel like it. There was some really beautiful moments. There were some busy moments in the month. So it wasn't like the whole duration was just entirely hermit. As I say, I had some really lovely days with my brother in particular. I saw my family, I saw my partner's family. We did some things that we don't usually do, which I find both fun and absolutely exhausting, or sometimes a little in between. I can be quite awkward socially, more so because a lot has changed for me, and there's a lot of facets to being disabled and stuff that kind of still I feel a little bit of an inconvenience at points, even though people aren't necessarily feeding that back to me. It's just been a different kind of month for me, I suppose. But the final thing I will end on is that my partner finished the Zelda, is it Tears of the Kingdom? The new Zelda game, and I have started playing it, which I know it's the end of June, but it is technically June, and I started playing it possibly about a week ago now. So I've given Dreamlight Valley a break and Spiritfarer. I don't think I played Spiritfarer since we lost Jagger, actually. I'll get there again. It's a really good game for not playing for ages and then picking it up and just remembering. Whereas for me, things like Zelda, especially with the more foggy, forgetful layers of my, you know, my memory functioning and stuff now, I like to just focus on those games. But I am having so much fun. I am enjoying it more than Breath of the Wild, I have to say. I had a couple of gripes with Breath of the Wild that meant I still haven't finished it, although I loved it and would highly recommend it. Although I detest the Guardians. Is that what those little annoying robot laser things are? Big not a fan. But I'm really enjoying this new Zelda. And it's been a really lovely distraction after I've come away from like doing work stuff. And whilst I haven't pinged off my email, because I think I said in my live, I will do an official email in July for my newsletter people. So my newsletter is called Witch Mail because it's a bit of everything. I wanted to officially announce my readings and my website opening on there. Many will know I had a website ages ago, and I used to do readings, but they were written readings. As I've said, they are now video readings. So it's a very different format, very different experience and different website. It's probably been a couple of years, actually. I had a solid break, 2 to 3 years from doing the readings, I feel now, because I'm just losing time. Yeah, I wanted a refresh, and that is what I've done. So my website is up and tarot readings are on there. It's been busy behind the scenes, just not a lot of exciting stuff to show you. But certainly for me, it's a nice focal point to come out of June with and hopefully have a different experience in July that is a little lighter and a little more what I'm used to feeling in the season of summer, which usually I'm quite fond of. I think that's everything. I'm going to wrap it up there. I appreciate this was a chatty, quiet, slow one. It's very, very reflective of my month. And thank you for hanging out to those of you who do enjoy these kinds of videos. I will be back at some stage. I would like to do a VR. I'm feeling kind of VR-y, but I haven't found a hashtag or a video I definitely know I want to respond to yet. I need to have a nosy. And also, I put a poll up about the next deck that I would review, and the Tarot of the Hidden Realms is Hidden Realm? Realm. There's no S on the end. I can never remember. Anyway, that's the deck I'm going to be reviewing. So keep your eyes out for polls if you want to see them. And I also keep meaning to get a video up. There'll be a short coming out at some point of me showing the few ways that I shuffle the Brady Tarot. So that will be up. And that's me for now. Let me know about your month below if you feel like it. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.